Hi, welcome back. Another edition of Steve Does GIS. This little video, we're just showing you how to use ArcScene, which is the 3D version of ArcMap. As you can see, the interface that I've got on the screen here looks remarkably similar. We have a menu along the top with a few quick link icons. We have a layer menu down the side called Scene Layers, and then we have a large blank white space in the middle. So I'm just going to use Add to add a terrain model to the view, and as immediately you can see that terrain model is displayed in a sort of a 3D perspective. But these tools up along the top bar here, we can see we've got Navigate, we've got Fly, Center on Target, Zoom to Target, Set Observer, and we've got some Zoom and Pan tools. So the default mode is in the Navigate mode, and here we can move our terrain model around the screen. If I'm very careful, I can show you that there is absolutely no height attached to this. Oops, it's disappeared, and that's because it's completely flat. What we have to do is actually, similar to ArcMap, is we need to set some properties here. So I can right click on the layer and go to the Properties tab, and you can see here we have a couple of extra ones which you haven't seen before in ArcMap, which is base heights and rendering. Click on base heights. At the moment, the radio button, which is checked, says no elevation values from a surface. So what we want to do is check this button here, floating on a custom surface, and it is itself a surface, so we're deriving the values from that. And if I click on Apply here, you can see that has immediately raised up that surface to demonstrate the terrain. We can exaggerate that if we wish. This is particularly useful for areas which are actually relatively low lying, and we do actually want to see some effect. So we could, some of the defaults are feet to meters, meters to feet, but in the custom we could, let's say, increase it by a factor of 2 and apply that, and you see the terrain standing up even more. As it happens, Death Valley's got a large elevational range anyway, so it's probably just as well to leave it at 1. And now when we rotate that image around, we can see that this area does have an elevational difference. The other tab that you saw on there under the properties was rendering, and this just controls the way that the surface is rendered by the graphics of the hardware. We can render at all times, render only while navigation is stopped, etc., etc. Rendering at all times just produces a better image. What we can also do is include the sun's position in this, so shade aerial features, and we can increase these thresholds here to make it much more high resolution, and click on OK. So immediately you can see the sun's position has been added in there. If we right click on Scene Layers and go to Scene Properties and Illumination, we can change the angle of the sun as if during the day, and indeed reposition the sun around the compass. And as you can see in the background, I'll just move that to one side, you can see the changes taking place as the sun moves around, and indeed the shadows lengthening and shortening as the sun altitude increases in the sky. Okay, so that's the basics of ArcScene. Let's just play now with some of these buttons, and the one which most people find the most fun is the fly button. And if we click there, you can see the navigate icon changes to a little bird with a dodgy looking red line through it. If I left click, the bird starts to fly. The more I left click, the faster the bird flies. So imagine you're this bird flying through the landscape. Moving the mouse up and down affects the angle. Moving it to the side turns the bird. Right click, whoa, it's very easy to get stuck in this. Right click slows down. And indeed, if you right click, you can stop. If you continue to right click, you can fly backwards if you're very good at this. And I'm not. Oh dear, I've just crashed. I'm going faster and faster. If you get lost, just wait until you've left clicked or right clicked to get back to the stationary bird and click the world icon. Operates in a similar way to that in Arc Map, and it goes to the full extent. Other things that we have here are center on target, so if we click on there it will just center the target accordingly. The other thing is we can click this one, it's just zoom to target, so let's zoom to telescope peak or thereabouts. And then of course you can tilt to see what it would look like roughly from the top of telescope peak. And this one here is set observer, so let's just put the observer on the top of this little peak here, and it will zoom in and show you what the terrain looks like at that particular locale. I've not set the colours particularly well on this, so it doesn't really, but I'm now seeing what the terrain looks like pretty much from that point on the ground. There we have most of the functions of ArcScene. You can of course, let's just go back to the main zoom, you can of course add further layers on the top, so let's say I wanted to add my slope layer on there. I can do that. One of the problems with this of course is you then have to set each of the layers individually. You can see the that layer is still flat, but because this part of Death Valley, the centre bit there, is below sea level, it then intersects with that. Just make that clear by changing the colour. Yeah, so there you can see. So what we need to do is set the base heights for that as well, but use in this instance not bringing it from itself, but bringing it from the terrain model for the floating surface. Now you can see the problems with intersecting layers, but if we switch off the DEM and we go back to our properties and our rendering and put in our effect of the sun's position, let's just put those back over to high and apply, then this starts to look quite a bit nicer. Yeah, and so that's pretty much this to ArcScene. So don't get too distracted by this. You can spend a lot of time flying around and having fun, a bit like a video game, but it can be quite useful technique of getting to grips with the landscape.